we're looking directly down on Dragon, but now we are swinging up and above the International Space Station, because we'll be docking to that zenith port. So again, like I mentioned earlier, we were looking directly down on Dragon with the Earth below it. Pretty soon, Dragon will be looking directly down on the International Space Station with the Earth below it. Looks like right now they are flying off the west coast of Senegal, about 260 statute miles above Earth.
And if you're just now joining us, you are tuned in to the Crew-7 mission. The crew launched last night at 12:27 a.m. Eastern Time. 12:27 a.m. Pacific Time, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. And now the crew is making their way to the International Space Station. We've already had a few burns. We've passed through checkpoint waypoint 0, and now the vehicle is swinging up towards waypoint 1. We are just under 25 minutes away from the expected time of arrival to waypoint 1, which will put the vehicle in line with the docking adapter on the International Space Station, and also put the vehicle directly above the International Space Station.
So if you're tracking, that's an almost 30-hour ride to orbit. The crew are suited up now. They are in their seats. They have not had to do so during the flight, and we just got a really cool view of one of those Draco thrusters firing, helping us fine-tune our approach to the space station. Our 4 crew members arriving today: Jasmine Mogbelli, Andreas Mogensen, Satoshi Furukawa, and Konstantin Borisov. Dragon looks pretty small in this picture, but we are getting closer and closer to the International Space Station. Waypoint 1 is our next really milestone. That'll be 220 meters directly above the station. We'll pass through that, head to waypoint 2, which is a hold point. It can be a brief pause. That's 20 meters away from the docking port. And once the astronauts arrive, they will be joining a crew of already 7 people living on the International Space Station, so bringing that total up to 11. The other astronauts and cosmonauts living on the station right now are Stephen Bowen, Woody Hoberg, Sultan Al-Nayati, Andrei Fedyayev, Frank Rubio, Sergei Prokopyev, and Dmitry Petelin. We ask them to put those back on shortly before we get into this approach initiation phase. So they are back in their suits right now. They are also in their seats. Of course, we don't expect anything to be off nominal in this situation, and we are moving pretty slowly, but it's still considered a dynamic period of flight because we're getting closer to the International Space Station and docking itself. We are about 15 minutes from waypoint 1. Again, our next pit stop on the way to the space station, about 220 meters above the Node 2 Zenith docking port.
And Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. C2V2 link reconfiguration is complete. Could you give us a quick comm check?
SpaceX Dragon, time check on the big loop.
We have you 5x5.
Have you seen?
Hearing that conversation between the core and the crew, that is Shiva Bharavaj down there in Mission Control, Hawthorne, And they were talking about C2V2. That's Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles. So
joining us, you are tuned into the Crew-7 mission. The Crew-7 crew is inside of that Dragon vehicle that you see there on your screen, and they're currently making their way to waypoint 1, which we expect to reach and pass through without a hold in about 7 minutes or so from now.
its approach, again, we are going up and above the space station, so we may eventually have some views of Dragon looking down on the station with the Earth below it, that they are moving in for docking. So we are now 16 meters away from the International Space Station, again, continuing slowly into the Node 2 Zenith port for docking today.
It's such a cool view. It almost feels like we're on Dragon approaching the International Space Station.